welcome back to POV Italian Cooking, where you see cooking from my point of view. We're working on episode 10 already. Today we're going to be making lasagna alla Bolognese. This is one of those dishes that it tastes incredible, but I kind of think of this lasagna as an event, mainly because it takes about, once you get all your ingredients together, once you get them in the pan, it's got to simmer for about 2.5 hours. So if you build in your prep time for your vegetables and your meats and everything, and then you build in the time it takes to build your lasagna and bake it, geez, you might be 4 hours into it. So, but it's incredibly tasty. It's actually pretty easy to make. It's you're going to see all these ingredients in the next shot, and you're going to think, wow, this is intimidating, and it's really not. And if I can do it, anybody out there can do it, because I'm learning along with everybody else. So let's get started and not waste any more time. Get right into making our lasagna alla Bolognese. And thanks a lot for sticking with us on our first 9 episodes, and now with episode 10 and going forward. Let's get going.
Okay, we've got our ingredients laid out for our Bolognese sauce. Now, it seems like a lot. This can be a little intimidating at first, but once we get into it, it's really not that bad. So with our Bolognese, you start with the Sofrito. Sofrito is generally onions, carrots, celery, and garlic. That's what we're going to start with here as well. 3 stalks of celery, 3 or 4 carrots depending on the size. These are kind of spindly. We're going to use 4. We're going to use a whole red onion. We're going to use about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. And in this Sofrito, we're going to have pancetta. Now, everything has to be very, very finely chopped for this. I'm going to cheat a little bit and use our food processor. Once our Sofrito is softened, we're also going to use olive oil, salt, pepper, and some crushed red pepper. We're going to use about a teaspoon of crushed red pepper. Go a little more if you like your sauce a little spicier. Go a little lighter if you don't like a lot of spice. It's just rounding out the flavor. So once we've got our Sofrito cooking and everything is softened, then we add our meats. For our meats, we are going to do a pound of ground pork, a pound of very lean ground beef. This is actually 92 lean, 8% fat, and then some ground veal. Once the meat's brown, then we add some wine. Today we are using Da Vinci, a standard Chianti, a 2014. Then once that absorbs, we're going to add our seasoning. We are using basil and some flat parsley. Then we're going to add 3 cans of peeled tomatoes. Now we're going to put these through our food processor as well to chop them down. Now that mixture will simmer for 2.5 hours. That will make it thicken up. That flavoring will be infused clear through the foods. Once it's simmered for 2.5 hours, then we're going to add a little bit of heavy cream to kind of just enrich the sauce. And when we're building our lasagna, for this recipe we use the oven-ready no-bake lasagna. This makes it really easy rather than boiling and whatnot. And then actually we use the moisture from your sauce and the bechamel that we're going to make. We don't have our ingredients laid out for the bechamel. We'll go over those later. But it would use that moisture to cook this lasagna, and it turns out really well. We're also using, when we're building our lasagna, we have a pound of part skim mozzarella, and we're going to have probably about 1.5 cups, more or less, of shredded Parmesan, and we'll add that between that. The Parmesan will go between every layer. The part skim mozzarella only goes on top. Now, one thing you don't see is ricotta. This recipe does not use ricotta. Instead of ricotta, you use a little bit of bechamel. The bechamel we're going to go over that in a little bit. So let's get our prep going, and we're going to start getting our Sofrito ready. So we need to prepare our vegetables. Now these need to be finely chopped. So today we're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to make use of our food processor. What I'm doing is I'm setting up the slicer right now. Then all we're going to do, I'm going to turn this on, and we're just going to slice everything up. Now once we have everything sliced, we're actually going to put it back in the food processor and chop it up pretty finely. I just like to do a pre-slice on it because it gets more consistent size. Now we've got everything sliced. Generally when you make a ragu or something, it's okay to have, chunky vegetables. I just in my lasagna prefer everything to be real finely minced. So that's why I use my food processor. Put our chopper blade in there. I'm not going to put all these back in, probably about half of them. We're going to get our chop on. And we're just going to pulse. Thing off the sides here again. Okay, we've got everything pretty well minced. Grab a second bowl so we can put our minced vegetables into one bowl. Okay, we have our vegetables very well minced up, as you can see. So we're going to go ahead and start our sofrito. I'm going to put a real good bit of olive oil here in the bottom of our pan and let that heat up with our garlic because we want our olive oil infused. Okay, our oil's getting hot. You want to be very careful as not to burn your garlic. If you have it up too high, you can definitely burn it. It burns quickly without anything else in the pan. So since our oil's hot, we're now going to add our pancetta, hear that wonderful sizzle, and our vegetables. Now, to get everything stirred up, we're going to let this cook about, we'll say about 8 minutes. At a relatively high temperature. We've got it set on about 6.5, 7 right now. We'll keep an eye on this. If it gets dry, we will add some more olive oil. But we're going to let this simmer for about 8 minutes. Okay, our sofrito is done. You're going to hear the timer go off. It has been 8 minutes. It's cooked down. So, we turn this. There's the timer. Next goes our red pepper. Just eyeball it. That's going to be about enough right there. Okay. Next thing in are our meats. Again, I've got everything over here on a parchment paper so as I don't contaminate my workspace. We're just going to put in all of our meats. Again, a pound of pork, a pound of ground, nice lean ground, and a pound of veal. We're just going to chop this up, work it in, and let it brown. We'll be right back. While this is browning, again, I like to use the Cento whole peeled tomatoes, the San Marzanos. We want these to be chopped up a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put them in our food processor. I've got to go get my chopper out. I just about poured these in without the chopping blade in, so be right back. Okay, I've got my chopping blade. I went ahead and rinsed everything off from when we did our vegetables. So we just dump these in there. Put a paper in there. Let's get that out. Get our top on. And we're just going to pulse these a couple times. Let's get down here where we can see. And that's probably enough. Now, going to go back over, work on the meat. Once I get that can of tomatoes in here, then I'll pulse the rest. But I'm going to go ahead and break away. Again, you just want your meat good and brown. So I'll come back when this meat is ready to go and our next ingredient, it needs to be added. I came back over to check on the progress of our meat to see how brown it was getting, and it is starting to brown up. You'll see there is some fat. We are not going to drain that off. That fat is flavor, so do not drain that off. This will get absorbed into your no-bake lasagna noodles and just be incorporated right into the dish. You'll thank me if you don't drain it off. If you drain it off, it's going to be really, you're stealing away the flavor. This is really starting to get good and done. Let's go ahead and add our wine. We're using a Chianti, Da Vinci Chianti Standard today. We're going to add about a cup of the wine. Just about to a cup. Now all the alcohol in this is going to boil off. There we go. Might have added a little more than a cup, and that's okay. I love the flavor that wine brings to this dish. I prefer to use a Chianti. You could probably use any red wine. I'm going to tell you right now, Chianti tastes the best in this. And out of a cup, we have an open bottle of Chianti and I don't have a glass. That's not right. So let's grab a quick glass and pour ourselves a little glass of Chianti. That's pretty good. It's a standard Chianti. I kind of prefer a Reserva or a Classico if I'm going to be drinking it. So, now that we've got this boiling, we're going to put in our tomatoes. Now, you remember, we went ahead and we pulsed our tomatoes. We used the San Marzano whole peeled tomatoes. We're just going to pour that right in here. I'll heat down a little bit. And we're just going to go ahead and do our other 2 cans. Now I am going to break away because there's no reason for you to watch me get these tomatoes in here, but we're going to stir all this together and we'll be right back. So while we wait on our bolognese, it gives us the opportunity to work on some of our other ingredients. What we're going to work on is our mozzarella and our parmesan. Now our mozzarella, we're going to do a kind of a coarse shred on that. The only place we're going to use mozzarella is on the very top layer. And this is a 16-ounce block. We're going to go ahead and shred the entire thing. Now with our Parmesan, we're going to use a little finer grade on that. That will go in between every layer on top of the Bechamel that we're going to make here once we get closer to getting our lasagna ready. So, coarse shred on the mozzarella, fine shred on the Parmesan. Entire block, about a cup and a half shredded. Okay, we're just checking on our bolognese sauce. Still needs to thicken up a little bit. It probably has about another half hour to cook, but maybe a little more. So let's talk about our bechamel. Bechamel is more or less it's going to replace what folks normally put in, which is ricotta cheese. For a bechamel, we're going to use about 1/3 cup of flour, about 4.5 tablespoons of butter, 2.5 cups of milk, and then salt and pepper. What we're going to do is, really we're making a roux. We're going to put this in a pan, we're going to cook it slow, we're going to keep stirring it constantly. You'll see that once we get it going here, it'll thicken up pretty quick, and then we're going to use that to layer in our lasagna. So we'll be back in a few minutes and start our bechamel sauce. Okay, our bolognese sauce is simmering away. Just about done, so it's time that we start our bechamel sauce. Now the bechamel is really a roux, so what we're going to do is we are going to get our butter and our flour in the pan. I'm going to break away real quick and measure out 2.5 cups of whole milk. So let me get my milk measured out. We'll be right back. We'll get this roux going. Okay, we've got our milk measured out and we're going to get our roux going. So butter and flour in the pan. You're going to want to use a wooden spoon to stir this, and you have to almost stir it constantly. You do not want this to burn, and you have to cook it a while. If you do not cook this at least, 15 minutes while stirring it, you will not get the flour taste out of it. It's just going to taste like a flour paste. You have to cook the flour taste out of it. So we are just going to keep stirring and stirring and stirring this forever while the butter melts, and as it turns into a nice little pasty roux. Now we're going to do some high-speed stuff. I'm going to crank it up, turn the speed up on this a little bit just so you guys can see this turn into a roux. As you can see, it's starting to turn into more of a paste, and we're just going to keep it all bunched in the middle of the pan. Keep stirring away. Make sure you incorporate all the flour. We have our heat on about medium. We've been cooking our roux on low to medium low for about 10 to 12 minutes. So it's time to add our milk. We are adding 2.5 cups of milk. Use whole milk. We are going to keep stirring this. Now we're going to turn the heat up to about medium. So I have added our salt and pepper, and I've been stirring for a while. It's been, probably 5-6 minutes since I've added the milk. you'll see here it is starting to thicken up. Now we're going to want our bechamel a little thicker than this, so we're going to go for a few more minutes. Now once this is done, I'm going to immediately take it off the heat, and we're going to start building our lasagna. Okay, the bechamel is done. It's just been another minute or two since we broke away last time. Now this is even going to tighten up a little bit more after we take it off the heat. So we're just going to go ahead, take this off the heat now. Our bolognese, see back here, has been simmering away. It's reduced a little bit. Still got a lot of good broth in there, which we're going to need for our no-bake noodles. So we're going to get set up over on the table, and we're going to start building our lasagna. Now I hate this electric company. Alright, now it's starting to start building our lasagna. The electric did come back on. The bechamel held up. It's a little thick. So, to build our lasagna, what you do is you first start with your bolognese sauce. You get this spread out in the bottom of the pan. This is going to be our bottom layer. And then over this, we'll put our pasta noodles. And then bolognese. And then Parmesan, and then we'll start it all over again. Now, the important thing when we're building this is that you want the noodles not to overlap, but to completely cover the bottom of each layer. So, we have a lot of noodles here. When you break them, sometimes they don't break where you want to. Just throw them aside and try again. And great thing is you can kind of use them to fill in wherever you need. Hey honey, would you be so kind as to get me the cheese out of the fridge? It'd be wonderful. So, there you go. We're just gonna make sure that every layer, try not to overlap as much as possible, but then now comes a layer of bechamel sauce, and we're going to put a thin layer on. We're going to use this rubber spatula to kind of spread it out. You can see it's kind of pasty now, since I would like to have started building this sooner, but the electric went out, which thickened up my bechamel more than I wanted. So, just kind of spread this out a little bit. Maybe use a little bit more here in the middle. This will kind of hold your noodles in place too, because it is thick. It's kind of more like a wallpaper paste, it seems like. Just try to spread this out best you can. Just like so. Get it all over your pasta. Then we're going to come in with some Parmesan. Like so. Then we go with our meat sauce again. Spread it out. And we're going to do this. We're going to make probably 3, maybe 4 layers. Okay, I'm starting on our second layer of bechamel, and you'll see that I'm being a little more liberal with this layer with the cheese sauce, with the bechamel, which is really, again, it's just a cheese sauce. It's made out of a flour roux. Come in with your Parmesan, like so. All right, we are on our last layer. You treat it just like every other layer, in that it's meat, bechamel, then we're going to cheese it up. I'm sorry, it's bechamel, and then the meat. This time, after we put our bechamel on, we're not put the Parmesan on, because we're going to top it with our mozzarella, and then do Parmesan over our mozzarella. So, okay, that's probably good enough. Push that back over, top it with meat, our bolognese sauce, and spread that out. Now we're going to come in with our mozzarella and do a nice heavy coat of mozzarella. Again, this is just part skim mozzarella. I went ahead and shredded the whole block. You're only going to need about half. Once we get this ready to go, it goes in the oven for 30 minutes at 375.
Now we're going to come in with our Parmesan. Nice finish of Parmesan over top. 30 minutes at 375. We'll be right back. Okay, our lasagna has been baking for half an hour. Now I did have enough stuff left over to make a second plate. As you can see, my gosh, it looks good. Cheese is nice and brown. Let's get this out. Take it over here on the table. Look at that, nice and cheesy, nice and brown on top. This has to sit for at least 5 minutes. It would be best to let it rest for 10. So we are going to let it sit. We'll be right back. We'll get it plated and we'll try it out, but this stuff is absolutely delicious. All right, so our lasagna is ready. We're going to get it cut up. It's rested about 5 minutes. Now my beautiful wife has made a roasted Brussels sprout with a honey balsamic glaze. Those look great. They'll pair really well with this. So let's give it a cut. I'm going to cut it right down the center here. Some pretty good sized pieces here. Take our time. Cut this. Go left-handed here. Cut it back the other way to make sure we get down in there. Hey, honey, do we have a spatula? Oh, look at you. She's with it. She's standing behind me with the spatula looking at me like, yeah, be glad you got me, because I'm remembering all this stuff that you're forgetting. And she is. She's awesome. All right. So, let's get this plated up. I love the corner pieces. They're my favorite. So, it's always hard to get that first piece of lasagna out. Let's see if we can plate it without it falling completely. Look at that steamy goodness. Steamy goodness. Move this out of the way. These are pretty big pieces, but I have a pretty big hunger because this has been cooking all day. Lasagna is an event because, you know, your bolognese, it cooks for 2.5 hours. So by the time you get around to eating it, oh, that's a big piece because Daddy's got big hunger. All right, so we got our lasagna plated up. Smells
Smells great.
Good. These Brussels sprouts. The Brussels sprouts, I can't say it. The Brussels sprouts smell great, which I'm going to start with tasting these. Those are good, baby. You did a good job. All right.
Taste the lasagna.
Mm-hmm. Let's give this lasagna a try. Look at that steam. Nice cheese on the top.
Looks good.
Mmm.
It's too big.
Oh, yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah, the basil taste is coming through. It's a real rich. It's very rich.
Mm-hmm.
The bechamel, the cream, the heavy cream that we put in our sauce, it's all coming together. It's all really rich. I know you guys want to eat this, but you can't because there won't be any left once the kids get into it. So, thanks for watching POV Italian Cooking. Don't forget to hit subscribe. You know, keep an eye on our Twitter and our Facebook page, and we'll see you soon.